What's going on, Coug fans? Welcome to another live edition of the Coug Fan and Couch GM live stream, talking all things WSU athletics. First note, that intro video Dylan just pointed out, we're going to be coming up with our own Cougar intro that will have some Coug highlights. We're going to be at the WSU Quarterback Classic next weekend in Pullman, Washington. So we're hoping to have some of the big name WSU guys, help us out with that intro video. But thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're going to be at that the Cougar Classic or the spring game next weekend, make sure to comment. Let us know. We're going to be there. We'll be at the golf tournament, the spring game on that Saturday. Hope to meet some of you guys there. Hope to get some interviews from some of the players and the coaches as well. And if for those of you watching, make sure to check out cougfan.com. That's where a lot of this breaking information and the detailed information is going to come from on WSU athletics. Make sure to subscribe to their premium membership for all things Cougar athletics. And if you or someone you know is thinking of buying, selling, or refinancing on the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, Idaho, or Arizona. And if you're a Coug alum, make sure to reach out to myself, Connor Webb, as I'm actually a mortgage broker when I'm not making these sports videos, and I'd be happy to help you assist on your next purchase. And Dylan, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I work for New Sun Power. I'm a solar consultant. So if you're looking to lock in an energy rate for the next 15 to 25 years and not deal with the power company, feel free to reach out to me via Twitter or 661-269-3003. And I can handle all the solar needs.
Feel free to give Dylan a call and just vent about your Cougar athletic frustrations as well.
Why is Lawan Watts in the portal?
So, starting right off with that, WSU basketball, they wrapped up. Can you walk us through exactly what that postseason tournament was? They lost game one, from my understanding.
Yeah, so they entered the Crown tournament, which was put on by Fox Sports this year. And essentially Fox Sports' way of kind of going at the NIT and giving Fox a postseason basketball tournament. And essentially what they did is there was a $500,000 purse, $300,000 in terms of NIL goes to the winning team, $100,000 to second place, and then $50,000 each to third and fourth. So there was some money on the line, and it was the same story with the Cougs for the most part. I mean, how many times this year have we seen pretty much a nobody go off for 30, 35 points? We saw that in the Pacific game with Lamar Washington and the game winner he hit. I think he had almost 40 points that game. And it was Mack, the lone starter out of the five for Georgetown, that was able to play. Both of their bigs were out. One's testing the draft waters, coming off of some sort of foot injury as well. And the other was in the transfer portal. Obviously, Nate Calmise, Isaiah Watts, Marcus Wilson were in the portal at the time. So WSU had a little bit of attrition on their end. I mean, pretty much every team's dealing with that at this point in the season. You've even seen some bench warmers, like a bench player on Florida already transferred. And it's like, these guys, they're in the Final Four. It's similar to what we saw with college football with the transfer portal opening during bowl season. This has to get rectified into the point of like, okay, once postseason play ends, let them out in terms of getting these players to their new schools or in the portal. But a tough one. Obviously, Lawan Watts is the latest of the Cougs to enter the portal. He's portal entry number 4. And the problem for Coach Riley and the staff right now is that everybody that's in the portal was a guard. Your starting point guard, Nate Calmise, Marcus Wilson, who got hurt early in the year, was expected to maybe be the primary ball handler going into next season. He opts for the transfer portal. Also, his agent, Ryan Murphy. I'm not surprised this slime ball is in the NIL market. I mean, this guy committed to WSU, decommitted, committed to another school, decommitted, played at 3 schools in 4 years. So
this is the agent?
He's the agent. Color me shocked that he's running a lot of potential players leaving from their programs. So obviously David Riley and staff, they've got to find ball handlers. They've got to find a guy that's going to be able to not turn the ball over as the point guard as well, because Nate Calmese, let's be honest. I mean, it was a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde show. You didn't know what you were getting from him. He was either keeping you in the game or he was taking you out of the game. So in my opinion, that's going to be an addition by subtraction. But the big thing is Lawan Watts. I mean, you got to take a look at where Lawan is as a person and as a player. This is a guy that lost both of his parents by age 14. His sister Bree pretty much was the eldest statesman of the household, in helping Lawan and his younger brother Deshaun get through high school and into college. She played college ball at Colorado. When you've got money that's probably anywhere over $300,000 to $400,000 being offered to you, it's hard for a person like that to pass that up. And I'm not hating what the players are doing. It's just the lay of the land right now. He's obviously getting substantial offers. We reported last night that shortly after the West Coast Conference, a source close to CougFan.com reiterated to us, like, he's getting substantial offers. And this was at the time when the portal wasn't open. So this is happening. I mean, players are getting talked to when they shouldn't be. So obviously there's a little bit of rapport with the Cougar Collective and Watts. There was a deal there earlier that, for him to come here this season, as well as Cedric Coward. I don't know if he's going to take a significant hometown discount. I mean, you saw Magoon Guath, star freshman center for San Diego State. He announced that he was going into the transfer portal. A week later, he's returning to San Diego State. Now, obviously, San Diego State and WSU's basketball programs are in different stratospheres. San Diego State, as recent as 2-3 years ago, is in the national championship. Probably have a little bit more in terms of their NIL to give out to players, but there are those instances where, hey, they do enter the portal and return. But I'd probably give the chances of Lawan returning probably 20%. I think the money's just going to be too big to pass up. I mean, how do you pass up $600,000, $500,000? I don't know the number, but I mean, this is typically what starters are making at big time Power 4 conferences, especially with the revenue sharing starting. There's going to be players standing to make anywhere from $500,000 to $2.5 million in this new age. So when you have a guy that might not have a long career at the pro level NBA wise, you got to stack your bread in college.
Yeah. And this is very similar to what we saw in football. There was the rumors that, hey, the Cougar Collective is banding up and we have a significant offer for John Mateer. It ends up getting to an amount that he's being offered elsewhere that he can't say no to it. It's the same type of thing. And I can only imagine speaking to the Cougar Collective and, go check out invest in the Cougar Collective, buy your gear, help donate, help support. But just the amount of moving pieces that they have to deal with every sport, having to negotiate with these players and with, communicating between the coaches, the players, figuring out dollar amounts. And you could have an offer that's the winning offer, but then it changes an hour later. And then it's just, it's a losing battle at that point. And to clarify, the NCAA basketball portal is open from March 24th through April 22nd. So as you described, the portal opened similar to football. The portal opened while the season was still technically going, while the tournaments were going, and they have to figure this stuff out because it's destroying college sports as we see it. And just to add to it, with basketball, there's less guys on the court, so you'd figure. And this is also where it's like, how much revenue is there in college basketball compared to college football? And so it sounds like a guy like Lawan Watts, obviously he probably isn't as highly sought after as John Mateer was. John Mateer ended up getting around like $3 million to go to Oklahoma. So Lawan Watts, might be in the $500K range.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if it's around there. And I've also heard a team that in school it's pretty close to Washington State could be in on Lawan Watts. And that's a school that's located in Spokane. Personally, I hate to say that he'd be a perfect fit with Mark Few and Gonzaga up there. It's tough to say, but I think the one thing that has certain Coug fans pissed off or maybe unhappy is kind of the DJ Rodman effect and the Lawan Watts effect. And you're seeing this across the country. This just isn't happening at Washington State. You put microphones in front of college students who just finished their last game of the season. What do you expect them to say? Uzziah Sellers of Stanford, Kyle Smith's pretty much number one option at the guard spot, said the same thing. I'm going to be back at Stanford. A couple days later, he's in the transfer portal. DJ Rodman, the senior night, he pranks Kyle Smith. Yeah, I'm coming back. And then all of a sudden USC's bag comes in and he's playing basketball at USC the next season. Shortly after the quarterfinal loss to San Francisco, Watts was quoted. 1 second. Watts was asked about his future after WSU's quarterfinal loss to San Francisco in the WCC tournament, saying, "I haven't thought about it yet, but I'm a Coug for sure. I'm just loyal to the guys and the guys that want to be here. Coming from Eastern, I think I'm always going to be with Coach Riley for the rest of my career." I mean, that was quite the quote after the game. I mean, he did stick it out as opposed to Nate Calmese and Isaiah Watts in terms of the postseason tournament. Obviously, we reported last week, we talked to Tim Brandel, the co-chair of the Cougar Collective, and Brandel was quoted as saying, we have produced a lucrative package presented to Watts. I feel good about where we're at with Lawan. He said, we're working with Coach Riley and his staff to provide them the resources and retain and attract players they need for sustained success. We're in talks with several players. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, right now, when you take a look, you lose Eric Strupp, you lose Ethan Price, 2 seniors. And then you have your 4 guards in the portal. As of right now, just 6 players remain on the roster. ND Okafor, who did after the quarterfinal loss say he was, expecting to return. Thomas Thrasterson, same thing. Case, why not? I've heard from a source, as long as the team wants him back, as there's a role there for him next season, he wants to be at Washington State. Parker Garrett's, obviously he said he's staying. Let's be real. Where's Parker going? Seriously, come on. Rehard Favors as well. So you have 3 guards. Thrasterson, I consider a stretch forward. And then you have the red shirt from Serbia, Dimitri Vukasevic, who redshirted this year. He's a center, and ND Okafor. So you're going to have to hit the portal hard in terms of guard play and finding a guy that's going to come in and be the point guard and take care of the basketball. Because when we take a look at some of the stats last year, David Riley and the Cougs, in terms of turnovers per game, they were 343rd in the nation out of 355.
Sounds like Washington State's football defense last year with how bad they were compared to the rest of the country.
It's very similar. There's no defense, unfortunately, this past year under David Riley. And yeah, he went 19-15. He had the second best first season for a WSU basketball head coach, just trailing Tony Bennett's 26-win season in 2006 and 2007. But there is a bit of an asterisk to that. Obviously, playing in the West Coast Conference as opposed to the Pac-12, what all these other coaches had to deal with. Kyle Smith, 16-16 when he came in. But here's also the other thing is, like, you want to see your team get better in that KenPom rating as the season goes on. I believe preseason they're around like the 112 range. They finish around the 120, 122 range. So they dropped 10 spots in that. So the biggest thing for them going forward, and Jeff Nusser of Pod versus Everyone had a fantastic article come out, I believe on Monday or Tuesday, talking about what the next steps are going to be. Check that out if you can. And basically he signals, look, turnovers and defensive rebounding. I mean, we saw it in plenty of games this year. Or there was a few games where a team had more offensive rebounds, than the Cougs had total wise defensively. So it's going to be a different offseason for Coach Riley. He had continuity come in his first year, being able to get Ethan Price, Dane Eric Strip, Lawan Watts, and Cedric Howard down from Eastern Washington. Well, it's going to be a little bit of a bigger rebuild and reset for him this year. And, there's been a few names that have been listed in terms of folks that are in the transfer portal, possibly looking for greener pastures that Coach Riley has his eyes sets on. And one guy is a forward out of Wofford. His name is Jeremy Lorenz. Analytics love him. Doesn't turn the ball over. Guy that averaged around 9 points this season as a sophomore at Wofford. So, we'll see what they can bring in. UMass Lowell guard Martin Somerville averaged 13, 14 points per game. For a good UMass loyal team that plays in the same conference that Vermont's in. Typically Vermont, UMass Lowell, the two teams that are, competing for that automatic bid out of that conference. Southern Utah forward Brock Felder. Now this is going to be more of a guy that is going to be brought in for defensive rebounding. Not the best looking offensive stats, but something's got to give. Like Riley's got to be able to switch something up this season because you're not going to get every type of big that's 6'8" to 6'10" that can defensive rebound and is an offensive star. Those guys are going to the big Power 4 universities. So a couple other names: Cal State Northridge Marcus Adams Jr., Texas State forward Josh O'Garo, Longwood guard Colby Garland, Fresno State forward Elijah Price, Northern Arizona forward Carson Tout, Virginia Tech guard Jaden Young, and Southeast Missouri point guard Rob Martin. That's the guy that I want to circle. Has a pretty good assist to turnover ratio. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to pluck. Is he going to be pulling up a lot of guys from the mid-major level where it's saying, hey, come in here, get some playing time. You're going to have a role and an opportunity where here we go again. Washington State's playing that minor league system card where it's like, okay, let's get the guy coming up from single A. You're playing in triple A, and now all of a sudden you had a great year and now you're taking an offer at Michigan. I mean, you're going to have to figure out how. Yeah, it's just college sports now. So the other aspect that I do like about Coach Riley is he's not afraid to go the international route and bring in guys from the international level in terms of, Thrasterson this year. I mean, what a find, a guy that was hiding out in Iceland. And I mean, he might be your best player on the roster at this given moment.
Yeah, that's wild. And as Duke mentions here, it's like nobody wants to watch player interviews anymore unless they're a senior and can't transfer next year, because you just don't know who's telling the truth and what is just, for the news. And he also says, put Zebby on every week because he has to end as a Coug. There's also some other seniors, Caleb Francl, Tucker Large now that are going to be on the WSU team. And unless you have anything else to add with basketball, I'll go ahead and pivot over to football.
Yeah, no, pivot.
Yeah, so the football transfer portal is going to be opening up again on April 16th. It'll be open until April 25th. And actually, just yesterday, Juvensky Schlembaker, a running back for Washington State who played in 23 games the past 2 seasons, announced on social media that he intends to enter the transfer portal. There's going to be some turnover. As we know, 15 guys from South Dakota State University transferred over, including their number 2 and 3 running backs. So there's quite the room, including Leo Pulilassi is another guy in the backfield for Washington State. So it's going to be a crowded backfield room. But Jimmy Rogers was asked about, Juvensky, and there was also a few other guys that weren't at the practice up in Spokane. And he stated he doesn't really have a comment at the moment. Some of those guys wanted a bigger role, and in conversation with them and seeing where they fit, I do believe some of those guys will end up in the portal. Some of those guys are hurt. But other than that, no update. The other 4 absent players on Saturday were tight end Andre Dollar, linebacker Dahan Doss, cornerback Kamani Jackson, and offensive tackle Carson Osmus. So we'll have to see what guys decide to enter the transfer portal April 16th, and just talking to an overall of where college athletics are. I saw a great post yesterday by actually a Facebook friend, and he had talked with a D2 coach at a university, and the coach of the university filled him in on some insight. It's like even D2 universities are not recruiting high school players as much because they would prefer to take guys out of the transfer portal because it would take less in their overall resources to take a guy from another university, even if it's at a D2 level, D3 level, because that's a guaranteed, like, proven player instead of investing the resources in an unproven guy out of high school. So for the select few people, and of course it's more than just a few, but for outside of the people that are really making the bag out of transferring to different universities, it's also affecting a lot of the younger people and a lot of the players that are looking for any opportunity. You know, they're not getting recruited as much. There's a ripple effect that is going on, and it's not just at the D1 level. It's across all college athletics, all levels, and it's really sad to see. And you know, we'll just have to see how things progress, but they have to figure out this transfer portal window thing at the very least, like get it out of the season. And I mean, we'll see what happens.
Well, and there's so many layers to it too. I mean, the new JUCO ruling as well, like add that layer on top of to D2 and D3 programs where it's like, okay, like kids can just sit at JUCO, beef up, get ready to go. And all of a sudden they have 4 more years of eligibility at the D1 level. So that's going to affect things as well. So yeah, it's just interesting to see how much chaos is involved in college sports. And unfortunately, it's affecting a school like ours much more than, you know, the USCs and the Oregons and Ohio States of the world.
And just to add to that, when we had Nathan Choate, the WSU baseball coach, on preseason, he mentioned that, you know, we asked him about the JUCO ruling, and he said that there's gonna be clarity that comes out on it, and they think that it's not so that everyone that plays JUCO has extra 2 years of eligibility. It's so that, you know, the guys that had the COVID stuff, and it's gonna be for a select few. You don't want someone that's 28 that redshirted with injury seasons, has 3 kids, and is 28 years old still playing in college athletics. So that's going to be ironed out as we get further along. But
the one thing I wanted to jump back to, you mentioned the 5. Obviously, Javensky, we know, is in the portal. One player out of that listing where you're hoping it's an injury and not in the portal is Kamani Jackson, cornerback Kamani Jackson, who Coach Rogers was able to retain initially. So it's gonna be interesting to see if he ends up maybe following Dickert, if he's hurt,
just to add to that,
what the deal is.
In this Coug Fan article, it does state that Kamani Jackson posted an Instagram story on Friday night from what appeared to be a hospital bed. Both Oof. He and Osmus were absent from the Saturday prior as well. So it seems like those might be injuries, but the other ones might be transfer portal. We'll have to see once it opens.
Well, yeah, I mean, you take a look too. It's like the positions that we saw Coach Rogers and this new staff really go after. We saw a lot of safeties come in. We saw a lot of tight ends come in. A lot of running backs come in. So maybe Andre Dollar could be looking elsewhere. I mean, this is all obviously us being speculative, you know, in terms of where we might see any of these 5 players end up. Obviously, Javensky, and let's be honest. I mean, you want to see a guy like that who's a consummate Coug for the 3 years he was here. At this point, he just wants some burn. He wants some playing time. And, you know, Coach Rogers said before spring ball started that he's going to have some tough conversations with guys where it's like, hey, man, I just don't think this is going to be the right spot or situation for you. You might want to get in the portal and find something else.
And to stay on the depressive note before we get into the positive with Caleb Francl and that interview and some positive, there was another article that Coug Fan came out with this past week. Make sure to check it out. But it talks about how the Pac-12 implosion has actually impacted the city of Pullman and the surrounding areas. As we look at the average attendance during the Mike Leach era, it was averaging 30,000 attendees per game. The Martin Stadium capacity is 32,952. Mike Leach's era was from 2012 to 2019. And then in 2023, we saw 28,000 as the average attendance, and then it dropped down to 22,000 in 2024 with this shift in the Pac-12 falling apart. So we'll see if the Rodgers era brings a new spark and life to this Washington State program, to where people want to travel out to Pullman, to go to the Cougs, to check into the hotels, to be a part of that atmosphere there. But the Pac-12 falling apart, it's depressed a lot of people, and it's turned people off in certain ways. So us Cougs alumni, we got to try to get back over to Pullman and support the surrounding areas. And now pivoting into, so we just had Caleb Francl on the podcast. That episode will be going live after this wraps up here. He is one of the transfers from South Dakota State University. Last season, he was an FCS All-American, and great guy. He's another one of those leaders that came over from South Dakota that will be looking to lead this team moving forward. And we'll just start off with asking, hey, last week was the Spokane kids clinic that you guys had up in Spokane. What was it like to be able to experience some of the WSU alumni and fan base?
What did you see from your couple days up there with the fans?
It was awesome. It was great seeing the fans and all the kids coming out. That was one of the most fun times I've had at a kids camp ever. So tons and tons of kids out there. It's really cool to see all the support we get from up in Spokane. I really hope we see them in the stands next fall. It's just cool to get that connection with them, talk to them, see what's going on out there. And, you make that connection with the young kid at that age, and they come to the games, they see him like, oh, I played catch with that guy. Like, my favorite player, it's just cool. And, hopefully they grow up to be a Coug themselves.
Cool to hear some insight from Caleb, who experienced that Cougar clinic for the first time in Spokane. And next weekend, not this weekend, but the following weekend will be the spring game. So if you're able to make it out to Pullman, watch the spring game, meet some of these guys, that would be great. This next clip is him talking about his role as a linebacker, and specifically as a Sam versus a Mike backer, and his role on the defense. And can you walk us through your role? I see that you were quoted saying that you play the Sam position. Can you maybe walk us through the different linebacker positions, what the Sam does compared to other positions?
Yeah, so the Sam is more to the field side, strong side, towards wide receivers. Play a little bit more in open space compared to the Will on the other side. He plays more to the run strength. So sometimes I'll be in man coverage as well in the slot. Usually when we get into like third down long situations, we have packages for that. So trying to get the best guys on the field for the best situations. So yeah, I would just say play a little bit more in space. I'll come into the box every now and then, but yeah.
Any takeaways that you had from the interview with Caleb Francl?
Yeah, Caleb, obviously a guy, fifth-year senior. He told us that he's trying to get better in terms of being, an outspoken team leader, because these incoming SDSU guys have got a little bit more on their plate this offseason, this spring ball, in terms of getting guys into the right spots. He said, I don't know if we have any more snippets we're playing, but one thing he said was, a lot of guys are saying they're going through some defensive packages. Like, I've never seen this before. I've never done this before. So a lot of this is nuanced and stuff that guys just have not seen or practiced. So hearing that, I like that. I like that aspect where it's okay. We've got something new coming in. We've got a staff that's focused on the defensive side of the football first. So we'll see how that irons out and how spring ball finishes up over the next week here.
I do have two more clips that I'll play here. This first one is him talking about, and he said in interviews that he's been an undersized guy his entire career, basically. Right now, he's 6'1", 190, not the smallest guy in the world, but talking about him comparing himself to Jimmy Rogers, who is like 5'9", 5'10". He was a standout linebacker at South Dakota. This is Caleb Francl.
Do you feel like you guys kind of, some of the defenders, yourself, Tucker Large, kind of take account of what your head coach was, kind of an undersized defender during his heyday? And, you guys come in with a lot of speed, maybe undersized, but is that kind of like your guys' calling cards?
Yeah, for me and Tucker, I believe he was a walk-on as well. I was a walk-on at South Dakota State. I came in super light linebacker. They really took a chance on me. The only reason they kind of knew who I was because I played against Bobbitt when he was coaching high school in Nebraska. I met him in the semifinals. So they kind of took a chance on me. Me and Tuck, it's kind of that walk-on mentality. Like you gotta outwork everyone. And you just got to come with a different mindset every day to lifting to practices. So I would say, we kind of do take that as like a chip on our shoulder.
Yourself, you say that you're undersized, or at least you quoted saying that 6'1", 190. That doesn't sound too small, but what it sounds like more is that rather than having massive guys that are filling up holes, that they have a lot of athletes that are flying around, able to cover a lot of ground. Can you talk through some of the scheme that Jimmy Rogers and maybe Bobbitt bring to the table, and this personnel that you guys have?
Yeah, I would say they bring a lot of unique things to the table as far as scheme. Some of these things we're going over this spring, guys are like, I've never seen this type of defense. So we run some pretty unique things. A lot of it relies on speed on the outsides. So I think that's kind of where that same position comes in, and why a lot of strong safeties can come down and play this position as well. Gage Jones is going to be a great player in the future at this position. He's already showing flashes of that. So I would say just speed in general is a big part of our defense and flying to the ball.
As you mentioned, this is going to be a defense first coaching staff, look of a team coming into next year. The offense is going to be solid, but it'll be interesting to see the new look defense, the defense that, as we talked about last year, was one of the worst in the country. They had to put up crazy numbers on the offensive side in order to win games. So if they could, we'll see if they can replicate the success that they had at South Dakota with this type of defense. They just have a few practices left. They have one practice today. They then have this coming Saturday, the following Tuesday, the Thursday, and then it ends with the spring game at Saturday in Pullman, Washington. So hope to see you there for that.
Yeah, and Gage Jones, the linebacker that Caleb shouted out, a redshirt freshman, a true freshman this past year, all-state guy, 2 years out of Eagle, Idaho, which is 20 minutes from Boise. Actually got his first game action in the Holiday Bowl. So that's a young guy to take a look for going forward in terms of the next guys that are going to come in here and be the next great linebackers, the Jahad Woodses and the Kyle Thorntons of the world at Washington State.
Now, talking a bit about WSU baseball to kind of wrap things up. So past 5 games, Washington State is 1-4. They lost last week at versus Gonzaga. They then lost 3 at Nevada. They then won their last game at Gonzaga. So they are currently 10-18, still looking to make the trek upward to the 500 mark. They are currently 5-2 home, 2-12 away, 3-4 on neutral site. They currently are 4-5 in the conference, which is the Mountain West Conference for their competition this year. So, if you've been sending emails, I've been getting them, and appreciate your input. And feel free to reach out to us if you guys have any questions, opinions, topics that you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Aside from that, anything else to add, Dylan?
Yeah. Shout out Rylan Hayter, who's just really been absolutely money for Coach Cho out of the pen this season. Really has been the most stable relief arm, most stable arm outside of starter, Griffin Smith. Rylan this season, 3.05 ERA, 1.16 whip. That's the big one. He's not coming in and walking batters, giving up hits. You want to see that whip around 1.3, especially at the college level. 2 wins, 11 appearances, 20 and 2/3 of an inning. He's got 2 saves and 2 wins. So out of the, what did you say, WSU was 10-18, but he's got 2 of the saves and 2 of the wins there. So he's been fantastic this season. And you hope that the Cougs can start rattling together some series wins in conference play.
Also, outfielder Max Hartman, he leads the team in at-bats with 111. He also leads the team in batting average, in OPS, a 351 batting average, a 938 OPS. He's got 6 for 6 in stolen base attempts. He's slugging over 500. He's got 3 home runs on the year. Max Hartman is a name to look out for. His name will be called at some point in this year's draft. So make sure to check him out. Be on the lookout for Washington State baseball as they continue their trek up to 500. thank you all for tuning in. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, his brother already in the minor league system. His brother was drafted a season or two ago. So you hope he gets drafted out of Washington State and takes it, because at this point, it's like, okay, is he going to get NIL somewhere next year? Let's just hope he gets drafted.
We'll see if his signing bonus is higher than the NIL that he could potentially get. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Couch GM. Make sure to go subscribe to CougFan.com for all things WSU athletics. And we'll see you in the next one.
Go Cougs.